Yes, glad that you're with us here today. It's a Friday morning. It's going to be a hot one. Our visit this morning with Bob Pollock, Penn State Extension, presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row and the best of Indiana County contests. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Extra hot weather coming. 94. Well, let's start with tomorrow. Tomorrow, 87. Sunday, 94. Monday, 96 degrees. I know that, it's not a topic we typically get into, but people who go outside and they're doing their lawn work, their yard work, people who are sawing up trees, people who are in the garden, it is a time for them to be really cautious, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. We haven't been used to that much this year.
No.
We're going from the cooler into the frying pan.
Yeah, we went
pretty quickly.
Yeah, 72%, and it's even a higher percentage. 72% of the days this year, since January 1st, have had either snow or rain, and that includes yesterday. So the percentage keeps going up, but evidently we're in for a bit of a dry spell, only 3 or 4 days. So the extra hot weather, it's tough on human beings and pets. It's tough on plants, too, isn't it?
Yes, especially when we so quickly go into that. We can't phase into it. Mm-hmm. Have a few days in the low 80s and then work our way into it to give us time to adapt. We're going to go there like flipping the switch. So, our plants, all the cloudy weather, the rainy weather, the ground, most places is pretty saturated, and now we're going to just bake that off here in the next week.
Yeah.
So any plants that you may need to protect, that's without the sunlight, they get a little tender, and so then if we get full sun with all this heat, you could end up getting sunburn on some plants. So just those ones that are more sensitive to that, maybe ones that have been more in the shade and they've been doing okay, you might want to watch those. Or ones that you've had even out in the open that maybe are a little tender, or they're young plants that are just getting going, and they're very succulent because we've had so much moisture. We're going to go from dumping the saucers out underneath the plant pots because they're full of water and all the rain. Needing that water back.
Are there shade cloths that people can use for plants? Do they make?
Yeah. They make varying percentages of shade cloth. Yes, that you could use for that.
And
purpose,
you could drape it over them. Is that what you do?
Sure.
Or do you put up a structure?
You could either way. It's better if it's kind of a structure that it's not. Plant. Yeah, that it's not laying on top of them. But, if you have a shady corner, or if you can move things, orient them so that they don't maybe get full sun all day long, that they'll maybe get the morning sun or the afternoon sun, kind of stage it that way, if you can move them around, just to help kind of ease them into those changing conditions, and not let them, some plants aren't going to be bothered too much by it. They'll deal with it. There's ample moisture in the ground. If we'd have been dry and then this happened, but it's going to take a little while to get, the moisture out of the ground.
So with that much moisture in the ground, is it really going to be necessary for us to water things? We do water our flowers and things like that.
We need anything that's been planted newly, anything that's in containers, because those containers are going to dry out very quickly. They're full of water now, but you might even leave the water in the saucer at this point because in a day or two it'll absorb that up into the plant, take that edge off. Because if you're not there all day, it can easily, those pots dry out and plants be wilting by the end of the day or before.
We have talked in the past about not only the need for watering, but the need to water properly in terms of when during the day, especially when you have 94-degree day with hot sunshine. When during the day, where do you put the water? Not on the leaves, but down below at the ground level. All of those things need to be observed, especially when it gets extra hot, right?
Sure, yeah. Keep those same practices. Try to water, the roots absorb the moisture. So if we water the soil, then those plants will be able to take that up. And we've been trying to avoid any kind of wetting periods because wetting periods promote disease.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had numerous, wetting periods. So it's kind of going to be nice to dry out a little bit here. But again, try to water, not to keep the foliage dry, which will then minimize the disease. And there's a number of plants that are resistant or not really susceptible to many diseases, and there's other plants that are highly susceptible. Tomatoes and things like that are really those wetting periods really create disease. We'll probably see people that have crab apples, ornamental crab apples, as well as fruiting apples. We've just had plenty of wet weather that apple scab is one of the key diseases that'll get on both those. They're both in the same family of plants. One's ornamental and one we use for fruit production, but they're highly susceptible to apple scab, which is a fungus. And we've had ample wetting periods over time. Usually by the time we get to the end of June, all the spores that started to be released in the spring should be pretty much done by now. That if you did a good job in the spring of protecting the plants, usually once we get into July, we have minimal problems with that. But this might be a different year. Mm-hmm. So you might notice that, especially on your ornamental crabs, if they're one of those susceptible cultivars, that they will start to get some yellow leaves. They might have spots on the leaves. Then they'll turn yellow. Then they'll turn brown. Then they'll just drop. Uh-huh. And by mid to the end of July, typically we'll see that happening. And this could be a year where that's happens.
At what time of the day or night should we be watering plants if we're going to be watering, or does it matter?
Well, it matters depending on how you're doing it. If you're just watering the soil and you're keeping the plants dry, then you have a lot of flexibility. But if you're doing overhead watering, then it'd be better to do it in the morning so that when the sun comes out, you have the opportunity to dry those plants off as quick as possible. Again, because we're trying to minimize any kind of foliage diseases that might occur. Mm-hmm. Versus watering at night with overhead irrigation, and that can be your hose, just hosing everything down.
Yeah.
You do that in the evening, there's a good chance that those plants are going to stay moist, the leaves will stay wet all night long. Mm-hmm. And most diseases, you have 8 to 12 hours of a wetting period, you will incur disease. So we want to try to minimize that, and that's how we can do it.
All right. So all of those things we need to consider when we're thinking about dealing with the hot weather. Now, people have lawns, of course, that they want to keep nice and moist and green during hot, dry weather. Right now, there's so much moisture in the ground that I don't think we need to worry about this particular stretch of hot weather. But they'll still have some people still have the sprinklers on, won't they? Because they're on a timer.
Yeah, they come on. They come on a regular schedule.
Yeah.
But, just keeping in mind the mowing height, keeping that up a little bit, versus trying to mow it down to the dirt.
Mm-hmm. You get to a point during
because we will stress the plants. Yeah. So we're trying to avoid that too. Allow them to transition, get used to the change in the weather.
During mowing season, you sort of run that differently in the spring and the early part of June than you do once you get to the middle of June, where we are now, and then into July when it gets drier typically than it usually does. People might alter the duration or the time between mowings or they might alter the height. Are both of those effective methods?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, in the spring you can get away with a little bit more, cutting a little bit shorter because it's its natural time to grow. And we've had a cooler spring, early summer already. So they're still growing well, doing well, putting on growth. So you can get away with that a little bit more on this type of spring. And then when you move into summer, raise that up. Anything you can do, just raising that cutting height shades the ground a little bit more. So that keeps the ground cooler. So that keeps the plant growing longer and keeps it from going dormant. And it also can help suppress weeds. That's the other thing about having a good solid turf there or cover on there. Shades the ground, but it can also keep light from getting down to the soil and allowing some of those weed seeds to germinate versus cutting it shorter and opening that up so that they can get in there.
Jeez, I just saw some really dangerous behavior at the traffic light there. Sorry, I was
Yeah. Well, I know when you're looking out the corner of your eye and I'm thinking, what's going on now?
Man, people in their cars. All right, so all of those things are things that we consider as it gets hotter, and well, we are looking forward to our first hot weekend of the year. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, first weekend without rain in a while.
Yeah. We'll take it. It's Indiana in the Morning. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com.
When you've been in an accident, you already have plenty to worry about.
At Marcus & Mack, we believe your focus should be on healing, not on legal battles. Hi, I'm attorney Robert Marcus.
And I'm attorney Brian Nitterheiser.
At Marcus & Mack, that's why we cover the case expenses.
So you can prioritize your recovery.
For decades, we've fought for our clients' compensation,
ensuring that they receive what they need for medical bills and lost income.
Let us show the insurance companies we mean business.
Learn more at marcusandmac.com.
Most people dream of having a beautiful home. Arun Lumber and Hardware can make those dreams come true. Arun Lumber and Hardware's experience and expert advice will take you from the first nail in a 2x6 to the finishing touches. From the roof to the basement,